a fun fact, she loves digital and social media initiatives can all be tracked. So we'll go ahead and get started, but if you have any questions, please type them into the chat box on the right of your screen, and we'll address those at the end of the webinar. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Artha.
Thanks so much, Katie, and thanks for having me, Yang. I appreciate all the questions that were submitted prior to the webinar, and I want to start with a short video. This is the most recent video by Socialnomics, Eric Qualman and his group. Many of you guys have probably seen the original, but the data was updated last year, and there is some consumer content in here, but some great stats that I feel like we should generally be aware of, so we're going to start with this short video. Okay, so I'm going to stop that right there just because it's a little slow. But I really like the word socialnomics because it merges social with econ, and you want to think about it this way because it's B2B and business-to-business social marketing. You have to change gears and think of things from an investment in communities on social media. Because we're all consumers of something, it's important as business marketers to kind of shift gears when you're thinking about B2B social media. So how can we do that? Consumers think of social networks as Facebook, Twitter, they think of all these different platforms. But for businesses, we think of them as shared media. So if you look at this chart, this is a pretty popular trending chart right now. It's called the PESO model. And PESO is a really great model. The acronym stands for paid, earned, shared, and owned when thinking of media. And social is the S in it. And some marketers even refer to the S as social instead of shared media. Unless you're Mark Zuckerberg, then you own it. So I guess it will be the blue one for him. But the goal here would be to have your content eventually become shared, and that's through engagement with followers and fans. And all 4 of these media channels stand on their own but play together. So for example, a blog post that gets shared on social platforms, that's kind of where the overlap happens in the purple and the blue circles that you see here. And we're going to take a deeper look into an example on the next slide. But we need to start thinking of media in these terms when we make investment decisions. So you want to see what platforms you already have covered. So for example, don't write 50 blog posts and then not pay a little bit to have it promoted, or not reach out to industry associations or trade media and whatnot to kind of have earned media and have them republished and things like that. And obviously social, you have to pay to play, and we'll talk a little deeper about that later. So a really great example here is a post of our CEO on her blog. And if you look, the actual post would be the owned media, right? So she publishes it, it's our content, we own it. And then if you look, it becomes paid media once you pay for it to be promoted on any of these social networks. Let's say the trade media picks it up and they republish it on their website. That's how it's the E in this model, it would be earned. And then let's say that your Facebook followers and whatnot share it or they retweet it, then it becomes shared media. And that's kind of how these media platforms work together. Something that every B2B marketer should understand is that you never own shared media, you're just an end user. And so when things like Facebook's newsfeed algorithm change, there's very little that marketers can do for changes like this, because at the end of the day it's shared. And we'll discuss some of those changes later in the webinar today. So that's just something to keep in mind. You don't own it, it is shared. So social media is really great for branding, buzz and awareness, lead generation, promotions. To start, you really have to have a great and really relevant content strategy to reach the right audience. So what you want to do is have a clear set of defined goals of what you want to achieve with every campaign. And the questions that you see on this screen are ones that you should ask yourself before joining any platform or starting a campaign. You'll see the example for Facebook for Business. You want to look. You see here that you can boost your post, promote your page. There's all these different options, but you have to stop and look at what you want to achieve, and that's essentially what they're asking you before you start a campaign with them. So always research, research, research. You want to really understand who your audience is before you select a platform. You'll see some of the networks that the Auto Care Association is on, and we did a lot of research before we chose to be on those. We used a system called Tracker. You can see the logo in the bottom left. That's a really great way to find influencers in the digital space to kind of see where your audience is. FollowerWonk is another one, but there's a lot of services out there that can help you do this research. In one meeting, I remember someone saying that we had to be on Google+, but if your audience is not there, you don't necessarily need to be on there. And there's a quote, build and they will come, but that doesn't honestly always apply. So do your research first before you select a platform, and again, there's these great tools out there. As far as where our industry stands, I think there's a huge desire to be socially active, but there's also a hesitation and a doubt of the return on investment. So we'll talk a little bit about how you can gauge those things and make better decisions. Twitter, I think, is really popular in the auto care industry, and it seems like the industry is hungry for real-time information. So that's just my 2 cents on that. So moving on with content strategy, reliability, this is also huge. Digital media calls for digital responses, and you want to be ready for two-way conversations. This is something you have to ask yourself again when you're making a content strategy is, do your social media followers rely on you for questions and inquiries? What's your response time going to be? There's an example in the top right about some inquiries we got with our membership department, and they said they sent an email but they didn't get a response, and so we have a 24-hour response time where we'll connect them with the right department when we get those messages and comments. And you'll see there's a tweet here from Apex about how, you know, it was a nice compliment we got just because we were so responsive during our show. But you want to stay reliable, and some really great ways you can do that is to automate your system. So try to think of it in terms of a traffic light. So there's red, yellow, and green, and that applies to posts. So in terms of getting leadership approval, you can color code your posts, and there's certain kinds that you don't need to always get approval for. They can just go up online. But there's other kinds which you might want to tag as red and make sure you have approval before you publish them. And this also applies for responding. So there's an example here with the Right to Repair Act. And anytime there's some sort of political issue, those get very tricky. And there's a lot of internet trolls that make certain type of comments. And you want to make sure that you have the proper means in place to be able to respond to all of those. And then there should always be someone monitoring social platforms. I highly recommend having a social media crisis plan, especially if there's some sort of new initiative or anything that you're trying to promote. Always, I recommend to try and decentralize social media. And for those of you that said you want to help social media managers in your company, try to give them as much content as you can. Tell them what you're up to. Keep them in the loop before launches. I mean, they really look forward to that stuff, and they try to think of new ways to promote it. Sneak peeks and previews and things like that. So don't necessarily wait until something is live and published before you go to your marketing department or social media manager about it. And again, the focus here is quality. So you should be posting several times a day, but you want to focus on quality and not necessarily quantity. Another thing to consider during making that content strategy is think about authenticity. You want to define your social media personality. And this is really great because you can be real and you don't have to talk business talk. Try not to make your social media strategy very salesy. Don't try to pick stuff all the time. There's a rule, some people say 80-20, some people say 70-30, but the rule of posting is to not engage in so much salesy type of stuff and throw in something that would be engaging for your audience. And then here and there you can put in, promotions about anything else that you're doing. But really try to have a real and unique voice that connects with customers. Again, this is where you can show personality. So there's an example of a blog post from our CEO, and she's talking very candidly about how she felt about Apex, and you can even see her train of thought through her questions in the post. You also see some ribbons and stuff that we previewed before Apex, see some behind-the-scenes photos of the office and the desk that's really popular here. So things like that. But you want to be fun and be exclusive. Give some incentives for people to visit your network so they know that they get behind-the-scenes looks when they go to your social network. So tools and tracking, I think this one's really fun. I really hate when webinars give big picture ideas and no way in execution and ideas for execution. So tools and tracking will help you guys with that. So social media tools, what's available. Tools are really great because they can help you save time and decentralize posting. Hootsuite for social media management is really great. We use it. I highly recommend it. I know there was a question about that, but it's great because it helps create dashboards, track mentions, schedule posts, even collaborate, and assign contributors. They just revamped their look, but you can see on the screen here kind of those green boxes. That's their dashboard, and it can be customized to show home feeds, mentions, followers, you name it, and they have some free and low budget plans. Octopus is a new Hootsuite competitor. I haven't used it, but they do offer a free trial for those that are interested. Duxboard is also another one. It creates an all-in-one dashboard, and it includes things like mailing list tracking, web clicks, visitors, and I think you can do a free trial for that as well. I also highly recommend you set up alerts to track your brand mentions, and that's across social, across online. So mention it lets you allows you to set up a free alert. There's also Google Alerts, which is a completely free service, and there's no cap on the alerts there, so I highly recommend that. Something I also want to mention here is to take advantage of Facebook and Twitter. They always want your money for advertising, and it's very easy to get their account managers on the phone to discuss ad campaigns, and that's a really, really great resource to get started. Also, if you look in the top right, that's an older screenshot of the Hootsuite dashboard, but you can see you can schedule a post on there. So all these tools are really great. Highly recommend looking into some of them. Tracking, measuring ROI, download and record the data. This is really important. We're going to talk about data a little bit more, but you always want to download anything and the data that is provided through the social platforms. Facebook just changed their insights to offer more engagement information. Have a talk with senior leadership to see what metrics matter to them, and you can kind of create spreadsheets based on that. But again, use some of the tools that are available, see how your growth changes, see what adjustments you can make based on that, and also know your data, know what it's saying about you. An example I wanted to give you guys is When I worked in a university environment, there was a really high bounce rate for our site, and that was because all across campus, all the computers were set to open on the homepage. So if you actually looked at the data, the bounce rate was really high. But just knowing that that's something that happens, you know why that rate is high, and then you can kind of disregard that number, or you know why it's acting that way. So that's why that's really important. And with regards to social, a lot of link shorteners, which are popular on social media, those do not get picked up in Google Analytics. So you'll see conflicting numbers there. And again, that's just part of knowing your data and being able to explain that difference. So it's a really great way to understand your audience. A lot of these social networks, Twitter analytics are really great. You can see the gender, you can see how each tweet performs, and based on that, you can choose the ones that you want to use for advertising. So highly recommend using that. 5 tips and trends. There was a lot of interest in tips and trends in the industry, so we're going to get into some pretty cool and fun stuff here. The first trend I want to talk about is database decision making, which we lightly just touched on, but again, you want to be able to prove the return on investment with social campaigns. And on the top right, you'll see a Twitter ad stat with the engagement rate. Again, I said you could call Twitter and you can talk about ways to improve that. And keeping these numbers in mind is really great to see what works and what doesn't. You want to leverage that data and make sure you use it to make your decisions. A trend we saw with our CEO's blog post as an example is she was getting a lot of traffic from LinkedIn. So we wanted to definitely see some growth there because there was an interest. Originally, they would only be published to the Auto Care Association LinkedIn group, but when we saw that there was an interest on LinkedIn, we had her start posting it to her personal profile on LinkedIn as well, which went directly to her connections, and we saw the boost in traffic come from there. So just things like that, when you're tracking that data and you're looking at it, you can make better decisions. And as these platforms mature, they're providing a lot more data. So Pinterest, for example, is one of the newer platforms, and they did not have analytics up until last year. So as they mature, you'll see some deeper analytics becoming available with them. So another trend I want to talk about is visual content. You want to show it and not say it. We're seeing more and more visual content, and what I like to say is a picture is worth 1,000 likes. So as an example, I'll show you this stat, which is from the latest e-tailoring study from the Auto Care Association. What it says is it's estimated that Amazon's same-day delivery could soon reach 31% of U.S. consumers by 2015, and then there you see the link going to the e-tailing study. So this is kind of a boring post. It looks very dry. It's not very colorful. So someone that visits our page wouldn't necessarily be inclined to click that link. But if we take this same stat and we turn it into a visual image, you can see the difference between the two there. So here we put kind of like a little generic comment, can you provide same-day shipping, and the link to our site is there to the study. But then you'll see that same data is presented in a visually stimulating way, and that makes a world of a difference on social. So you can visit sites like blog.visualleague, and there's a lot of different content that's available on there. You can kind of browse through it and see what other brands have done, and you can also get some ideas from there. Note that infographic type of content tends to do really well, so you want to try things with observational humor, novel insights, how-to, timely issues. Something else I want to point out about this post is it's not very salesy. We could say buy our publication a lot of different ways, but we're not necessarily selling that. We're giving kind of cool factoid that inclines a person or a fan or follower to learn more. So think of ways to tell your story in a more visually stimulating fashion. It will really help when it comes to social networking. Visual content, moving on, low budget ideas. So this is also really fun. I realize that a lot of departments tend to have budget constraints. They don't necessarily have graphic designers in-house that could help them create some of the stuff we just saw. And that last e-tailing study was created by our graphic designer. So when you don't have those types of resources available to you, there are solutions. In the top left here, you'll see Unsplash. That's where you can purchase, or not purchase, but you'll be able to find copyright-free images that you can use on your social networks. Canva is also a really great site. We'll use that for the Cardcare Council, and you can really create visually stimulating images from there. It's a free service, excellent quality visuals. And if Instagram makes you look like a professional photographer, Canva can make you look like a graphic designer. It's really great because you'll see on the bottom of the slide, it has customized templates based on social platform dimensions. So you can use, they already have, you don't have to know the sizing requirements for each network. They have what size a Facebook post is, a Facebook cover photo, Instagram. So you can kind of get all that there based on the platform and just get started right away. So that's all really great stuff. Whenever you guys get a chance, I highly recommend you visit some of those sites. There were also some questions about videos and infographics I touched on lightly. I want to show you guys something that the Car Care Council has done, and I have to give a shout out to Rachel, who's with the Car Care Council. She's been doing a really great job with these Maintenance Monday videos. But with regard to video, shorter videos do really well. You saw in that beginning video that people's attention spans are shorter, so using services like Vine and Instagram for video is really helpful. And I'll show you guys real quick one of the videos that we did for Maintenance Monday. It was all shot on an iPad, and we just have maybe like a $1 app or something that we edit the videos in. So let me show you guys that video real quick. So that was me putting an emergency kit into my car. And that was just a really great way. Instead of telling people that they should have these kits, we made a short video of what should be included in a kit and showed them showed it being placed into a vehicle. So it makes a world of a difference. And I have some really cool stats here. So 90% of the information transmitted to the brain is visual. These stats, I think, are from a couple of years ago, but you'll see in a period of 2 years, infographic searches on Google increased by 20%. And they say that people only understand 20% of what they read. So, I'm sorry, 800%. Infographic searches increased within a 2-year period. So you'll see some infographic examples on this slide here. These are from the Car Care Council, and if you just visit their website, there's a couple of different ones that you can see related to our industry. But they work really great, and there are some great services available here as well for you to make these. The one you see on Saving Gas was made in PictoChart. There's also another one called Venngage, but you'll have to play around in them and kind of take some of their templates and see what works best for your business. But those are available, and again, 800% increase in searches for infographics, so that's a really, really great way to present data. And then also, you can see there's like a snippet of the hot oil one here, so you don't necessarily have to put the entire infographic out at the same time. If you want to release it in snippets, that's also fine. The content lives longer on social since you have more of it. So those are just some ideas on how you can use some of these tools that are available to you. I think there was a question also on the use of YouTube. I really like that platform for videos. I think it allows for better sharing across all social networks. It's easy to share on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Tumblr. Whereas if you upload a video just to Facebook, people need to have a login and might not necessarily be able to see it if they don't. So it increases your discoverability, and that's something to keep in mind as well when you're creating that content strategy. But again, definitely visit the Car Care Council site if you want examples of some industry infographics. And I'll also show you guys a case study real quick. We have one here. Somebody asked about an auto repair facility. So you can see this is a website called Social Media Examiner, and they actually did a case study on how an auto repair shop is winning customers with social media. So if you have time to visit it, this is a campaign from 2013, and they just show some of the different things that they did on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and how they offered them incentives, how they engage with them, and it wasn't necessarily, they're posing questions and not necessarily just always selling the shop. So if you do get a chance, try to visit that site and see that case study. Another trend I want to talk to you guys about is disappearing media. So this is what I like to call YOVO, and it's a play on YOLO, but I say you only view once, and it's because think like the app Snapchat. There's some sort of media, photos or things like that that you can only see for a certain amount of time. And this trend is getting to be really, really super popular. In terms of Snapchat's popularity in May 2014, the app users were sending 700 million photos and videos per day. So this tends to be very popular with the millennial generation. So if that's kind of a target that you have in mind, just keep in mind that disappearing media is a very current trend. It really creates a lot of suspense, buzz, and brand awareness. I think it's popular in nature for that reason, and the content tends to be very short-lived. So I think some good ideas is to maybe create content that you can post and take down, so maybe like coupon codes, offers, things like that. If you can, try and preview or tease a new product, because that'll be really fun. I gave an example here with Insider magazine that the Auto Care Association puts out. So you'll see I put volume 91 of it, and it's kind of just a preview screenshot of it. But in how other businesses have used this, in the bottom right, you can see there's the last selfie campaign, which was done by the World Wildlife Fund. And they played on the disappearing media trend to showcase endangered species. So they really compelled their customers and people affiliated with the brand to think of it in terms of that disappearing media. So that's just something to keep in mind. There's also a link at the bottom of this slide which has some case studies on how brands are using Snapchat. I know GE is a very popular brand, but if you have the time, you can go to this website, convinceandconvert.com, and search the way brands are using Snapchat. They have a pretty cool case study on some of them. So try to visit those and learn more about that trend as it gets more popular. So what do Sharks and Auto Care have in common? This trend is one of my favorites, and you saw it in the video in the beginning as well. Sharks and Auto Care have newsjacking in common, and what that basically is the art and science of injecting your ideas into breaking news stories with the use of hashtags. Benefits are that you can piggyback on trending topics, reach a broader audience, increase brand awareness and visibility, and basically stay on top of mind with your customer. There's a lot more examples of this at the Content Marketing Institute if you have time to take a look at that. But just some food for thought here. Let's say you guys see that example of Oreo where you can still dunk in the jar. They put that out during the Super Bowl. So let's say you're in the auto industry and you make like headlamps or headlights, and you see that happens during the Super Bowl, or you see a couple of days following how Oreo used it. You can use Jack and make a hashtag to say, you know, you can still drive in the dark, or something creative like that. That's basically what newsjacking does. And another example here is that sharking statistic. So the Carter Council used that during Shark Week. We all know Shark Week is very popular. So we kind of piggybacked off of that hashtag and showed some pretty shocking stats, but we dubbed them sharking with that hashtag, and those were trending online. Another example here is with Federal Mogul. They use the hashtag jobs to promote some of their job openings and career opportunities. And then I also wanted to mention Gates Auto, which does Funny Friday auto humor. So keeping in mind that they're in the auto industry, you can connect with them or engage with them when they do that on Fridays. But this is just a really great way to use hashtags and connect with, you know, some of the other conversations that are going on online. And the last trend I want to talk about is paid media, how it's not a choice anymore. Organic traffic is basically extinct. You have to pay to play. So moving forward, you want to make sure that your business has a social advertising budget allocated. And again, with some of the changes that we talked about with Facebook and whatnot, you want to be able to change your strategies quickly. So let's say you had a certain amount allocated for Facebook. They had an algorithm change. So basically now with this change, only 1% to 2% of traffic is organic. So you're not going to reach all of your fans and followers because of that. So you want to make sure that you diversify somewhat. You have some advertising on Facebook, have some on Twitter, based on some of the platforms that you're on. LinkedIn also has an ad platform. Instagram has one in beta right now. But you want to make sure that you know you're not going to get organic traffic just because there's too much competition out there at this point, and the algorithms for these networks have changed. So another thing I highly recommend is going beyond that paid media and starting an influencer program. It's really important to know who the influencers are in your industry and reach out and connect and engage with them. Make sure they're aware of who you are. And there's two programs that I want you guys to know about for sure. One is Yang Connect. It's member only, so you have to be a Yang member. And this is going to launch, I believe, in February. So you guys will be notified via email if you're a member. But that's a really, really great one to connect with other people in the industry, share ideas among peers, exchange information, and privately message industry colleagues. And it's something only for Yang exclusive. It'll be really, really great resource. And you can also get email threads set up and sent to you. The Auto Care Association also has an influencer program that's launching later this month. Membership is not required, but my contact information is on the screen for that. If you're interested in being in that influencer program, I'm happy to discuss it with you. And like I said, Courtney is with Yang. Her email address is available here as well if you're interested in the Yang program or membership there. But again, you really got to understand that, you have to have a budget. Paid media and the influencer program is probably the only thing that will get you high engagement rates. And like I said, Instagram and Pinterest are beta testing their platform. So you're seeing a trend in all of the networks moving to, an ad platform and having to pay to get traffic to your pages. So that's just something to keep in mind as well. And lastly, I want to talk about the Auto Care Association social calendar. So we have a calendar. It's available on autocare.org/social. All of our networks are featured here. So we are on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We have a group on LinkedIn, which is pretty active, and that's the way the group is set up is we want to make sure that you have industry affiliation, so you can't just join it right away. You have to request to join and be approved. And this is, again, a decision that we made very consciously when we were making our content strategy is, do you want to be open to all? Do you want to be closed? There's a Yang group right now, which is closed. So these are things to keep in mind when you're making that strategy. Also featured here is our Auto Care Association CEO blog. So you can find that at autocare.org/on-the-road. And we saw some examples from Kathleen, our CEO, on there. But that's also a really great place to kind of check out some of the content that we put out. And with that, I just would like to tell everyone, don't be scared of social media. Have a plan in place. Test the waters. Always abide by the company policy, by some of the things that, are outlined by senior staff in terms of posting. And again, that traffic light model is a really great way to start posting or keep posting and making sure that you're abiding by those rules. And again, check out our calendar. We're happy to connect with you. We're active in this space, so reach out to us if you're interested in the influencer program. And our content calendar goes 7 days a week, so definitely take advantage of that. I also want to answer some of the questions that were sent to me before the webinar. There was something that stood out to me that I wanted to address. So one was how to make my company feel safe on social media. Having a content strategy, again, I think is a great way to deal with this. But again, just using that traffic light model would be a really great way. I think having a crisis plan is really important. So let's say that something happens where somebody posts something negative about some products or things that you sell, or there's a customer service issue. Making sure that you have some sort of strategy in place in case something happens like that, I think would really help staff at the company feel safer with being active in the social space. The case histories of successful campaigns, again, I think there's a lot of businesses out there that are doing really well. I gave the example with Gates Auto and what they're doing on Fridays. There's that social media example. But there are some other great industry examples. If you guys do a search or you use some of those systems I mentioned earlier, like Tracker, that's a really great way to find out who's active in the space and who's not. There was another question about how to approach baby boomers and direct them to Twitter and Instagram. My recommendation here is to incentivize interactions on those platforms. So let's say that you want people to get more active on a certain network. Try to offer incentives. If you can offer coupon codes for your business, or if you can offer sneak peeks or anything that you can show them that they wouldn't be able to see just by visiting your site or calling you on the phone or something like that. But if you incentivize and give them a reason to visit, you might see a lot more traffic coming in. And like I said, you have to think in terms of the PESO model and how all of the media channels work together. So as long as you're putting information out via all of those channels, I think you'll be good. And with that, I'm going to hand this back over to Katie.
Thanks, Arfa. So we had a few questions come in during your presentation. So if you have any, go ahead and type them into the text box, and we'll get to those shortly. But so the first question is, how do I share relevant material? I feel like the material for a B2B platform is just difficult to sustain and keep exciting.
Okay, so that's a great question. In terms of sustainability, you really want to use some of the content that you already have available. So the example that I gave with our publication, that detailing and these statistics can be very, very dry. But what we did is we created an entire library of those images, and we have those ready to go throughout the year. We have them for several publications. And that way, like I said, the content lives a lot longer. If you just present that content in a different way, it really makes a huge difference on social media. So my example with the infographics is, let's say you pull a lot of material together and you create an infographic. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to post that whole thing online right away. If you want to do it in little snippets, that helps your content live longer and you're not always struggling to find a new way to put it out. I also recommend decentralizing social media. So if you can reach out to different departments within your organization and say, you know, once a month, can everybody tell me what are some initiatives that you're working on, what's something exciting and new in your department, and you kind of just have this email thread going on with all the different ones, you can get some more content that you didn't necessarily have to create and write. When it comes to blog posts too, you know, for our CEO blog, we had another member of our senior staff publish a blog on it, and that was kind of to keep things interesting where it wasn't always our CEO posting on there. So that's something to keep in mind and a different take on, you know, some of the content that you put out.
Great, thanks, Arfa. Okay, so the next question is, what are the effects of the current Facebook algorithm on image posts versus text posts, and does this affect reach?
Yeah, so reach is definitely affected by the algorithm change. I mentioned earlier, only 1 to 2% of your reach is going to be organic. The rest has to happen through paid media. And the key here to understand, I don't think you should think of it in terms of text or image. You should think of it in terms of engagement. The higher the engagement on your page, the more likely Facebook is going to show your posts to people that follow and like you on Facebook. So as long as you're posting engaging content, which is most likely going to be visual, you can sneak some text posts in there here and there, but you want to make sure that those engagement rates are high. I highly recommend, instead of doing like promoted posts and things like that, those don't necessarily help in engagement that much. If you can boost your posts as they go online, that really helps with engagement because you're making sure that each individual post is being promoted, and what happens is when that happens enough times, then Facebook's algorithm picks that up and they're more likely to show what you're posting.
And that actually leads into our next question about measuring ROI. So the question is, you showed the metric tools provided by social media sites, but how can we really calculate how a like, share, follower, etc. affects our actual return? And then he put, does a like equal $1? How about $2? Example, we have 1,000 likes, my boss says, so what?
Okay, so this is a really great question, and it goes back to, you know, the trending issue of how you're going to use that data. ROI, I think the way you want to present this is you have to be able to show the effect of the campaign. So if you set up a Facebook page just to have it, it's great that you have 1,000 followers, and your boss is right when he says, so what? But if you set up a page because you want to promote your brand and you want people interested in your brand and you want them going to your website, again, this goes back to the example I showed in the beginning. When you set up an ad on Facebook, that's the first thing they ask you. What are you trying to do with this ad? Are you trying to just create brand awareness? Are you trying to send traffic to your website? Are you trying to promote a certain link? Once you decide what it is that you're trying to accomplish, then you can go a little bit deeper into those stats and say, you know, we promoted this page of our site and we saw this many visitors come in from Facebook. And this is, you're going to see the click-through rate through the analytics that Facebook provides, but I also recommend having some sort of Google Analytics, another tool that you can use to see the back-end traffic to your website, for example, if that's something that you want to be measured on. But basically, you want to use the data that they're giving you. I highly recommend downloading it once a month. If you're running ads, you can see what the return is when you sign into the ads platform for Twitter. It'll tell you the cost. There's a lot of like CTR rates. The same applies if you advertise on Google's platform. but most of these will show you what the cost per each engagement is.
Okay, great. Thanks, ARPA. So that's all of our questions for today. Oh, one more. Oh, no, sorry. He said thank you. So thanks, ARPA. That was a really great presentation. And I just wanted to thank everyone for joining us today. Just so you know, this presentation was recorded. So if you want to reference something, it'll be up on our website tomorrow at autocare.org/yang. And then you'll also receive a short survey when we wrap up here today, or it might come tomorrow morning. So please take the time to provide us some feedback. This is something, the Yang Time is going to be a regular series, and so our next one is scheduled for February 10th at 3 p.m., and an email registration will go out tomorrow, and it's titled, "This is How You Do It, Secrets to Email Success," with Karen Purvis, and she describes it as a way to get your email messages read in an effective manner. And so more information on that will come out this afternoon. So thank you everyone so much, and have a great day.